Nigeria is not a poor country. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. It has one of the largest economies in Africa, vast natural resources, and a population that should be driving serious economic growth. And yet over 60% of Nigerians are living in poverty, according to the World Bank. So the question isn't whether Nigeria has potential. The real question is, why isn't that potential translating into real progress? Because on paper, things look fine. Nigeria's economy is growing. Reports covered by Reuters show continued GDP expansion, driven by sectors like services and telecommunications. But that growth is not reaching most people, and that's where the problem starts. A large part of Nigeria's economic growth is happening in sectors that don't employ the majority of the population. Meanwhile, agriculture, which supports a huge number of Nigerians, is struggling due to insecurity, low investment, and weak infrastructure. So you end up with a situation where the economy is improving in theory, but daily life is getting harder in reality. Now look at inflation. In 2024, inflation crossed 30%, and even though it has slowed down, prices remain high across food, transport, and basic services. And inflation doesn't reverse itself. Once prices go up, they tend to stay up, especially when incomes don't increase at the same pace. That's exactly what's happening. The World Bank has pointed out that incomes have not kept up with rising costs, meaning people are effectively worse off, even as inflation slows. This is why the cost of living crisis feels so intense. Now add government reforms into the mix. The removal of fuel subsidies was a major policy shift, one that economists have supported for years. But in practice, it had immediate consequences. Fuel prices increased sharply, transport costs went up, the cost of moving goods increased, businesses adjusted their prices, and that impact spread across the entire economy. So while the policy may be correct in the long term, the short-term effect has been a significant increase in the cost of living. This highlights a deeper issue, not just policy decisions, but how they are implemented, because without proper cushioning, even necessary reforms can create serious hardship. Then there's employment. Recent figures suggest improvement, but those numbers don't tell the full story. Changes in how employment is measured mean that even minimal work can count as being employed. So while official data may look better, the reality is that many Nigerians are underemployed, working without stability, consistency, or sufficient income. That gap between data and reality is part of the frustration, and it connects directly to another major issue: insecurity. Across different regions, Nigeria continues to deal with banditry, kidnappings, and insurgency. These are often treated as purely security problems, but they are closely linked to economic conditions. High levels of poverty, unemployment, and inequality create environments where instability becomes more likely. So insecurity is not just a policing issue, it's also a reflection of deeper economic challenges. On top of all this, Nigeria is also affected by global pressures. According to Reuters, rising global tensions and energy market disruptions are continuing to push inflation pressures, especially in developing economies. This means that even well-intended domestic reforms can be undermined by external factors. And then there are environmental challenges. Flooding has become more frequent and more severe, damaging farmland, displacing communities, and reducing food supply. In a country where agriculture is already under pressure, this creates an additional layer of risk. When you put all of this together, a clear pattern emerges. Nigeria does not lack resources. It does not lack talent. It does not lack potential. What it lacks is a system that consistently converts those advantages into real improvements in people's lives. Because right now, economic growth is not inclusive, policies are not fully optimized for impact, and structural issues continue to limit progress. So the problem isn't that Nigeria isn't working at all, it's that it's not working for most people. And until that changes, the gap between what Nigeria could be and what Nigeria actually is will continue to grow.